Why Freen and Becky's connection makes other on-screen pairings feel forced. Intro. When chemistry can't be taught. Chemistry is one of the most discussed yet least understood elements in storytelling. Studios try to engineer it. Directors try to rehearse it. Actors try to perform it. And sometimes, despite all the effort, it still doesn't appear. Because real chemistry isn't created by technique alone. It's felt. Instinctively, immediately, and often without explanation. This is why Freen and Becky's connection stands out so sharply. Not because other pairings lack talent or professionalism, but because watching them together quietly resets expectations. Once you've seen a connection that flows without visible effort, anything overly constructed begins to feel noticeable. Not wrong, not bad, just forced. The difference between performance and presence. Most on-screen pairings rely on performance. Actors hit emotional beats on cue. They lean in at the right moments. They deliver lines with practiced intensity. And it works until it doesn't. With Freen and Becky, something different happens. Their connection isn't driven by heightened emotion or dramatic delivery. It's driven by presence. They don't rush moments. They don't fill silence unnecessarily. They allow scenes to breathe. That ease creates space. And space is where authenticity lives. When viewers then watch other pairings that rely heavily on scripted intensity, the contrast becomes clear. Effort shows. The timing feels precise rather than organic. The connection feels performed rather than shared. When acting looks like trying isn't a flaw. It's part of the craft. But visible effort can break immersion. In many pairings you can see the work. The calculated eye contact. The carefully placed touches. The emotional emphasis that signals. This is the romantic moment. Freen and Becky rarely signal anything. They don't announce intimacy. They don't underline emotion. They trust the audience to notice. That trust changes everything. Once viewers experience a pairing that doesn't need to convince them, pairings that actively push chemistry forward can feel overly deliberate, even if the acting is excellent. Why natural rhythm matters. One of the most overlooked elements of chemistry is rhythm. Not dialogue rhythm, emotional rhythm. Freen and Becky move at the same pace. They pause at the same time. They react before words are spoken. This creates a sense of synchronicity that can't be choreographed easily. It's the result of mutual awareness. Listening, sensing, adjusting without conscious thought. In contrast, many pairings feel mismatched in rhythm. One actor leads while the other follows. One rushes emotion while the other lingers. One performs while the other responds. The imbalance isn't always obvious, until you've seen balance done effortlessly. Why comfort is more convincing than passion. Passion is loud. Comfort is quiet. Many pairings prioritize visible passion, intensity, urgency, dramatic closeness. And while that can be compelling, it often lacks longevity. Freen and Becky's connection is rooted in comfort. They look relaxed together. They don't perform closeness, they inhabit it. They appear grounded, not heightened. Comfort reads as safety. Safety reads as trust. Trust reads as real. When viewers sense that kind of grounding, pairings built solely on dramatic tension can start to feel hollow. Impressive but not convincing. The OFF screen continuity effect. Another key factor is consistency. With Freen and Becky, the connection doesn't disappear when the scene ends. Whether on screen, behind the scenes, or during public appearances, the same dynamic persists. Calm, attuned, unforced. This continuity reinforces authenticity. When audiences then watch pairings whose chemistry exists only within scripted moments and vanishes elsewhere, the contrast becomes difficult to ignore. It's not that those pairings are fake. It's that Freen and Becky's connection feels whole. The unintended standard they set. Perhaps the most interesting part is this. Freen and Becky never tried to raise the bar. They didn't aim to redefine on-screen chemistry. They didn't market authenticity. They didn't frame themselves as different. They simply showed up as they were. And in doing so, they unintentionally set a new standard, one where chemistry isn't measured by intensity, but by ease. Not by declaration but by understanding. Once that standard exists, everything else is measured against it. Conclusion: why forced is really about comparison. When people say other pairings feel forced, they aren't dismissing talent. They're responding to contrast. Freen and Becky showed what happens when connection doesn't need to be built from scratch, when it already exists and simply needs space. They reminded audiences that the most convincing relationships aren't the loudest ones. They're the ones that don't feel like performances at all. And once you've seen chemistry that doesn't try, everything else starts to look like it is.